evening, ladies and gentlemen. Did you ever think in the 21st century black magic would be part of our political discourse? Well, it is. And it started with Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday taking a veiled jibe at the Grand Old Party for their last Friday's Black Clothes protest. He said that this black magic is not going to help those who are desperate to revive their political fortunes. Now, the Congress was quick to hit back. Rahul Gandhi this morning said that such comments do not behove the position of the Prime Minister's office. He went on to say the Prime Minister was trying to hide his kale karname. Other leaders of the party soon took cue. Taking to social media, they mocked the black thread on the Prime Minister's wrist. Is this kalava also black magic, they asked? They mocked the sacred black thread that weaves together faith and security for all the Hindus who believe in wearing such a black thread. The Congress has carpet-bombed social media with pictures of the Prime Minister wearing this kalava. Many others tweeted pictures of Prime Minister Modi in a black kurta and asked if that was the black magic that he was talking about. Listen in to the Congress taking umbrage to the Prime Minister's comments yesterday.
उन्हें अगर ये लगता है कि काला कपड़ा पहन लेना काला जादू करना है, तो मैं कुंभ में स्नान करती हुई उनकी कई तस्वीरें हैं जिसमें उन्होंने काले वस्त्र पहन रखे हैं। भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कई नेताओं ने काले वस्त्र पहन रखे हैं। ऐसे में अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी ने काले वस्त्र पहन करके और विरोध के स्वरूप देश को एक संदेशा दिया कि हम महंगाई का विरोध कर रहे हैं।
पार्लियामेंट वी वर नॉट अलाउड टू डिस्कस. वी हैड नो ऑप्शन बट टू वेयर ब्लैक क्लोथ्स एंड टू गिव दैट मैसेज. बट हियर यू कैन सी, इसको देख लीजिए, इसे काला जादू कहते हैं. ये जो कर रहे हैं ये खुदगर्जी के लिए इसको जादू टोना कहते हैं, इसे काला जादू कहते हैं. एज अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर, पीपल एक्सपेक्ट दैट person when opens his mouth, he is our prime minister. He is not a prime minister of Bharatiya Janata Party. He is a prime minister of country. He is my prime minister also. We don't expect this type of dirty words or dirty politics from a person who is sitting on the highest chair.
The BJP was quick to rebut this black thread jibe of the Congress party. They linked it to the festival of Raksha Bandhan today. BJP asked why the Congress chose this day to insult the thread that symbolizes Raksha or many devout Hindus. Is this an insult to the Hindu faith? They asked. Questioning the Congress, the Saffron party alleged that they only believe in Parivar Bhakti. Listen in.
बिल्कुल सच है. अब मैंने ये कड़ा पहना है, वो कल बोलेंगे आपने कड़ा क्यों पहना, लोहे का कड़ा क्यों पहना है. असल में उनको धर्म से लेना देना नहीं. वो सिर्फ एक ही धर्म में जानते हैं, वो है सोनिया गांधी के आगे मत्था देखना. उसके आगे उनका कोई धर्म नहीं है. इस प्रकार की बात करते हैं और लगातार हिंदू जो हमारे चिन्ह हैं या हमारे जो आराध्य पुरुष हैं उनको लेकर प्रश्न उठाते रहे हैं. वो तो यहाँ तक कहते थे कि राम हुए नहीं कभी. तो इसलिए जब हम लोग मोली पहनते हैं तो उसको लेकर इस प्रकार का अपशब्द बोलना उनके दिखता है कि किस प्रकार का उनका मन है.
So the legitimate question we are asking on the Newshour tonight, is Kala politics hurting India? That's the question, and that's the debate on the other side. Hashtag Kala politics. The debate coming up.
You're watching the Newshour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And joining me tonight, Nalin Kohli, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author Ghanshyam Tiwari, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Vikraman R, Spokesperson of the VCK. Also joining us in just a bit from now, Aam Aadmi Spokesperson Akshay Marathe. But my first question goes to Advocate Kapil Madan. Advocate Kapil Madan, I want to ask you, what are the Kale Karname of the Prime Minister that Mr. Rahul Gandhi has been referring to? Is vaccinating 200 crore people of this country a Kala Karnama? Is catching hold of black money stashed with several people who can't explain the origins of their money black Karnama? Is creating a better position for India internationally, a black Karnama, is, feeding 80 crore people during the epidemic, a black Karnama. What is Mr. Rahul Gandhi referring to?
So Navika ji, let us see the things in the correct perspective. Now, from where this, black, magic debate is coming from. I mean, every time you think that the BJP can't go more low, they will not disappoint you and they will make a statement which will again better their own record. Now I'll just ask you one question. If someone is wearing a black cloth or someone is wearing a black band as a measure, as something to show that they are protesting against the government, is that a black magic or not? Is that a black magic? I'm asking you. What is your opinion? What do you think about it? Let's start the debate from here. What is your personal opinion about it? Is this a black magic?
You know what my personal opinion is? My personal opinion is that the black shirts came out when the ED came out to ask questions to Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi. The Mehngai was invisible to the Congress party before that. It is only when the ED asked questions that suddenly the black shirts came out. So if you're a party that actually thinks that it stands for the people of this country, you're not. Because last time you did a rally in Rajasthan on Mehngai, on price rise. What did Rahul Gandhi speak about? He spoke about Hindutva in that rally. So my answer, if you really want my answer on that, is that Mr. Rahul Gandhi is running out of arguments to save his political career, which is why he jumps to these questions, comes out on the streets in black clothes, and even in a press conference on that day talks only about the ED, the fact that this country is not worth living. Not once does he mention the issue of price rise. So that's how fake this entire issue is, and that's what the Prime Minister was referring to.
Navika ji, so thank you, and I get your wonderful drift. So you also agree that the issue could be something else. I mean, there could be a policy decision, but the Prime Minister will refer to as black magic, as Kala Jadoo, etc., etc. I don't know whether he is, staying in any kind of a dreamland. I mean, it sounds a little hilarious to me that if someone is protesting, you will refer to them as they are, doing a black magic. And let me, tell you three important things here. If wearing black signifies black magic, there are different photographs wherein Mr. Modi himself was doing yoga in black clothes, and ironically, Mr. Modi in today's VP Saab's oath ceremony, Mr. VP Saab was also wearing black. So I don't know whether his problem is with black, whether his problem is with the opposition.
You can't figure out, you can't understand what the Prime Minister was saying. Dr. Anand Ranganathan is raising his hands and he wants to decode it for you. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Navika, and good evening to all my esteemed panelists. Look, I am not superstitious, Navika, but I'm convinced that it is only through black magic that one can instill some sense into Rahul Gandhi. और नाविका, आज राखी का दिन है, आप मेरी बहन हैं, इसलिए आपसे मेरी एक ख्वाहिश है, दरखास्त है कि आप मुझे ढाई मिनट मुझे दीजिए, क्योंकि ऑपोजिशन की बात वो चाहता है कि हम इन्हीं मुद्दों में उलझे रहें, काला जादू, काला मैजिक, कपड़े, ये वो, कुछ हद तक बीजेपी भी ये चाहती है. But away from the rhetoric or silliness of this whole issue, we the citizens must now take the role of a constructive opposition. Because our opposition parties are destructive, I am convinced of it. So please give me 2.5 minutes. राखी के टाइम पे आपका भाई आपसे रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है, because I want to delve into the real issue.
राखी में वैसे बहनों को दिया जाता है, बहनों से लिया नहीं जाता. Anyway, take your 2.5 minutes.
Yes, so थोड़ा उल्टा हो गया. But आप इतने उदारीन हैं कि मतलब आप ये कर सकती हैं. But Navika, yes, unemployment is a serious concern, irrespective of the COVID-induced downturn that is slowly on the mend, thankfully, or cyclical factors like high interest rate, weak bond market with bond issuance down 10%, low credit growth, high cost of borrowing. The economy has been in a bad shape, irrespective of COVID. But you know why that is? और यहाँ पे काला मैजिक आता है कांग्रेस का. Because Modi has been following Congress socialist policies, and any deviation from them has been vetoed by the Congress itself. Look, as far as the economy is concerned, no one has been more critical of Mr. Modi than I. But it is the Congress that has supported Modi in pushing India into an economic mess. Let me explain. One, we have 1,825 PSUs, quarter of them are non-functional. A fifth of our annual budgetary allocation of 28 lakh crores goes in propping up PSUs. Except Air India, there has been zero privatization in the last 8 years. The PSUs that are sold are bought by other PSUs, PFC, LIC, NTPC buying REC, Coal India, THDC and NEPCO. But who objects to them being sold? Yes, Congress. Two, nationalized banks are rife with corruption and have NPS totaling 6 lakh crores. But who objects to their privatization? Yes, Congress. Three, there is no incentive for private companies to set up shops because of zero land reforms. But who blocked the land acquisition bill? Yes, Congress. Four, average state debt to GSDP is 35%, highest in 15 years. But who supports loan waivers and freebies? Yes, the Congress. Five, agriculture contributes only 13% to our GDP, and yet 44% of our 485 million strong labor force is involved in it. In the West, it is 2%. Production to purchase, the entire chain is archaic, almost medieval. But who objected to the land reforms, farm reforms? Yes, Congress. Six, Modi once derisively called Manrega scheme as gadde khodna. But who praised Modi when he increased Manrega budget multifold? Yes, Congress. Finally, Navika, on unemployment. And here the tragedy really hits you. 91% of our labor force is in the informal sector. The only data we have is through EPFO, the formal sector jobs, or a ramshackle 5-year NSSO survey. One cannot have a meaningful discussion, academic or political, on jobs unless we know how many new jobs were created per ready labor force every year during the UPA and the NDA. All else is finger pointing. Indian scientists can send a satellite to Mars, but Indian economists cannot furnish simple info. Navika, 10 seconds. If a common citizen can give all this data wearing black, why can't Rahul? I much rather he wore some common sense than that silly black attire.
Nalin Kohli, black magic. Is there a specific reason the Prime Minister chose that? And has the Congress party made a joke of everything? Kale Karname, they will not look at their own Kale Karname, but they have called out the Prime Ministers. They haven't really contributed anything to the discussion and the discourse in this country, and they've raised questions about the thread that many people in this country believe in. So Nalin Kohli, where is this Kala politics taking us?
Well, it's an important question and it should be answered, Navika ji, because now there are basically, as far as the principal opposition party, the Congress, is concerned, they aren't getting their act right. And we are no one to advise them. We have no desire to advise them. Essentially, they are constantly opposing for the sake of opposing and keeping a duplicitous stand. So they will say, we want to discuss price rise and other issues in Parliament, but they are never there to participate in the debate. And I think what Prime Minister Modi was doing, you have to note that he was doing it at the launch of an ethanol plant in Panipat worth 900 crores dedicated to the nation. So he was here talking about an actual developmental project that has seen fruition as several others. And it was an apt opportunity for him to take on politically and remind parties like the Congress that this kind of so-called protest without substance in it, without it being linked to the reality of the day, is not going to succeed. Now, the Congress is entitled to wear black, white, yellow, green, blue, whatever color they want. But they can't convert an investigation into the first family, which is the Nehru Gandhi family, a personal investigation into a so-called satyagraha, because then that becomes a satyagraha, so-called satyagraha, on promoting corruption, which goes against the very ideal why a satyagraha took place in India. So it's the Congress party which has much to say. To somehow escape the answers, they are raising these kind of theatricals, these kind of strange statements. And Prime Minister Modi, I think it was an occasion for him to, he got an opportunity to speak about it. He went ahead and exposed the Congress.
Well, Ghanshyam Tiwari, Ghanshyam Tiwari, do you think we live in a country where, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has objections to being investigated for issues that are prima facie worth an investigation as stated by the courts of this country? And if that is done, he comes out, uses the ruse of mehengai to protest on the streets. Is he trying to deflect the attention away from this and trying to make himself a champion of the common people using the issue of price rise, when actually price rise is an issue that is a fake curtain that he uses? In Parliament, he will not listen to the debate on it, will not stand there to hear the government's response on it, will not put the government on the mat, comes out, does black clothes protests outside the street, and actually is more worried about ED because that's what he's talking about in the press conference he does on the day of the protest. So, Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, is everybody in the political circles deflecting attention away from the real issues this country is facing?
Good evening, Navika ji, to you, my fellow co-panelists and the viewers, and a very happy Raksha Bandhan to every one of you and the viewers. I think it is absolutely clear that if the Prime Minister was a person of his own words, of his own commitment, he would have seen price rise. He would have seen the massive unemployment and had not resorted to this petty logic. The last time I saw the Prime Minister resorting to such petty logic was in October 2015 when he said, "I am a lucky man," when petrol prices were down and he was facing Delhi elections. BJP was routed in Delhi. And once the petrol prices are up, once the nation faces price rise, once there's massive unemployment, Prime Minister is not saying he's an unlucky man. Do you think that he was lucky at that time and he's unlucky right now? Do you think that the Prime Minister is responsible for taking the nation for a ride? White lie, black lie, bhagwa lie, whatever lie you call, by saying Kala Dhan aayega, 100 दिनों में आएगा, हर किसी के खाते में 15 लाख दिए जाएंगे? Yeah, by saying 2 crore jobs will be created when the government was informed, there were 22 crore people applied for and just 7 lakh people got the jobs? Or by saying that India will reach a $5 trillion economy when the leading spokesperson don't know how many zeros are there in trillion? And when they go to UP elections saying that they have doubled the per capita income, when the RBI State of the State survey says that between 2017 and 2021, this is the RBI data, that per capita income dipped in Uttar Pradesh. So BJP has made a magic, call it black, bhagwa, white, their color, choice of color, where any lie will be the national news. Any petty logic will be national news. But the fact that the nation is reeling under price rise, the fact that WHO said that this government bungled on its political ambition and foolishness with respect to Bengal, bungled the response that country faced on second wave of corona, the fact that this government doesn't speak about black money, the fact that BJP doubles its income every 2 years, the fact that its choicest capitalists tripled, quadrupled their wealth every 3-4 years, these things are not an issue of debate. What is the issue of debate is somehow in a roundabout way, ask a roundabout question, put the opposition on the mat, say that, oh, you have to talk about unemployment, look at what happened in UPA. Hello. In this country, do you know how many children are born every year? 3.5 crore children are born every year. How long would you blame Nehru for the mistakes that you must own? Whether you foolish or you thought people were foolish when you promised 2 crore jobs, or when you said that the black money will be brought and 50 lakh will be given. Today, you cannot even say on television that your government in 5 years waved 10 lakh crores of money to corporates. You will not admit it. You have to wait till the parliament session to admit it. And if I ask Nalin Kohli, why did you give this 10 lakh crore bonanza to your choicest corporates? He will go roundabout and saying that, this is black magic. So I don't know what black magic, bhagwa magic or white magic is, but the nation is reeling under the misrule of Bharatiya Janata Party.
Respond to the charge made by Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari about you gifting money, 10,000 crores to your friends, as he calls them.
He said 10 lakh crores. I'm surprised he didn't say 100 lakh crores or 1,000 lakh crores. Who stops you? Who stops anybody from coming up with any kind of figure? As far as I see it, I think this is a frustrated opposition speaking. And I have no hesitation to use that word. It's a frustrated opposition. It's an opposition that wants to somehow come back to power without really going and convincing where it matters most. People. The voters of the country. The voters of the country now have a choice. They have a model of Narendra Modi, a model in which there's delivery, a class of beneficiaries who get their food in not a single starvation death in 2 years of Corona. They get all their benefits without the bicholias and the leakages and all that stuff. And there is an opposition that says that we will sit in a TV debate studio and then hope that the rest of the country will vote for them. You have to work. In a democracy, you have to go and work among the people and you have to deliver to the people. And then they use their finger to vote the party that they have faith on. The second is, who's gifting anything anywhere? And if you think that somebody is gifting anywhere, where could you raise it best? You could raise it best in only two places. One is the August House of the Parliament, where they are more busy jumping on tables, jumping off tables, standing with placards, and then saying that nobody allows us to speak. And when the debate comes, even on price rise, they run away. So, I mean, this is not a model that you can fool people with. You can fool some people someplace, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So if the opposition really wants to make an attack on the Congress, they really need to, on the BJP, they really need to first look at themselves. They have only themselves to blame. If they have such a fit case, why aren't they in Parliament? Why aren't they putting it on the floor of the House of Parliament? Why aren't they before the Supreme Court if they wish to do so? They don't have a case. They want to manufacture a case, driven by the visceral hatred for Narendra Modi. Simple. They hate Narendra Modi and they hope that leave elections aside, they can't defeat him in elections, so we will raise all these kind of arguments against Modi because there is nothing else we have better to do.
Well, so let me get in Akshay Marathe of the Aam Aadmi Party. Akshay Marathe, do you think the black magic and the black Karname politics is taking away from the real issues at hand? And can the Congress party actually hold its head high and say, that they should not be investigated? And there are problems in the cases that they have against them. They haven't got relief. And is the protest on price rise just a ruse to hide behind actually the action by the investigation agencies?
Navika, for political parties, for the media, this issue of price rise can be a ruse, it can be a deflection point, it can be a distraction for the government. But for the person on the ground, for the Aam Aadmi of this country, the issue of price rise is an issue that matters to them on a daily basis, on every day, at least 3-4 times, when you're cooking your meals in the morning, when you're getting books for your children, when you're paying your utility bills. Literally every step along the way, the Aam Aadmi is suffering because no government today is willing to accept and address the fact that this country is facing historic price rise. And instead of talking about why this price rise is happening to begin with, we are talking about who is wearing what kind of clothes. And this is not, I don't want to get into Congress or BJP because honestly, this country has had enough of this Congress-BJP nonsense. We want answers from the people in power. And for the last 8 years, the BJP government has been in power. And instead of telling us what concrete steps are going to be taken to solve this issue of price rise, what do we hear the Prime Minister of the country saying? The Prime Minister is trying to tell us, oh, if we give you any more free services, then our country is going to turn into Sri Lanka. But first, the Prime Minister should tell us what has he done in the last 8 years to prevent a situation like Venezuela and Sri Lanka to happen. And let me tell you, Navika, in Venezuela, the most pressing problem for the last several years has been inflation. Inflation has been breaking the backs of the people in Venezuela because the government really ruined the economic situation and finances of that country. And if the Prime Minister really thinks that we are heading towards Venezuela, then he must address the issue of price rise and inflation. I want to ask Mr. Kohli, tell us any three steps that the government is going to take in the next 6 months to stop inflation from going havoc in the way that it has been happening the last couple years. Mr. Kohli, please tell us any 3 steps the government is going to take.
Nalin Kohli.
If anybody goes out there and reads a little bit and studies these questions for which they seek answers, then they'll understand 3 or 4 basics. The world is acknowledging now, and people who basically understand economics, people who don't pretend to know economics, but those who know economics, they understand that there are 2 models that have been available. One is boosting the supply side and one was boosting the demand side. India followed the first, boosting the supply side. In boosting the supply side, if you look at all global economies across all the continents, the Indian situation is the most promising. This is not me, BJP, or anyone speaking. This is anyone who knows economics and is being quoted globally. The second part to it is cutting out flow of funds in the market. There are some people who are criticizing it in terms of the RBI raising interest rates. But then that's a global thing. I think India has done a phenomenal job in terms of controlling inflation. Of course, there is inflation. There is inflation across the world. It is not an India phenomena. It is not a phenomena made out of Prime Minister Modi or his government's policy. It's based on the reality of what has happened in the post-COVID world. But if you look at the performance of the Indian currency, if you look at the performance of the Indian economy, and if you look at the question of inflation in India, we are faring better than virtually most countries in the world. So we don't need to step out any 3 steps. All the steps that we have been taking as a government and as a nation have obviously been bearing fruit better than many steps being taken by other governments.
What are these steps, sir? What are these steps, Mr. Kohli? Why is it that the people on the ground are not seeing the effect of those steps?
Well, I'll tell you.
How are we supposed to believe you just by saying this? You cannot tell us.
No, Mr. Marathi, it's easily answered. People will see a lot of work being done in the ground when they actually visit BJP ruled states and move out of the Aam Aadmi Party zone. In the Aam Aadmi Party zone,
that's not an answer. But Mr. Akshay Marathe, may I, you're talking about inflation so sanctimoniously.
Because
may I tell you that your government is the government which hasn't reduced duties on petrol and diesel, the single biggest factor that fires up inflation. BJP ruled states have, and that's where opposition is crowding politics with economics, and that is the real concern, isn't it, Dr. Anand Ranganathan?
Can I answer,
Okay.
Navika? You have raised a very important question.
Okay, Akshay Marathe is answering, and then I'm coming to you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan.
Okay.
Navika, this is exactly why the Arvind Kejriwal model of governance says that for the basic necessities of people, whether it's electricity, water, education, health, we should provide them free of cost to all the people in our state. And that is what we are doing in Delhi. That is what we are now doing in Punjab. And this is what the Prime Minister is questioning Mr. Kejriwal over.
That is another debate which we will do. But may I tell you that Punjab's debt GDP ratio is about 42.5% and is expected to go up to approximately 47% by 2026, not very far off, 3 years from now. So I want to ask you, how are you going to continue this entire model of giving free everything to everybody? Because it's unsustainable. You are taxing a few people and wanting to redistribute and cross-subsidize the rest of, the population of states or the country, and it's going to bust in your face sooner than later. But Dr. Anand Ranganathan wants to come in. Yes, Dr. Anand.
Yes, thank you, Navika. I've been waiting for very long, listening very patiently to all the erudite panelists. Please give me a minute, because there are 2 issues and both of them are crucially important. One, what Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari raised, and the other, what my good friend Akshay has raised. And I'll address both of them, so please give me a minute. Number one, I'm afraid I would have preferred if the BJP spokesperson, the erudite Mr. Kohli, a good friend, would have rebutted Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, because in 40 seconds he spoke 4 absolute lies and they weren't corrected. They must be corrected. Number one, Narendra Modi never said that he will bring back all black money in 100 days. Never. Number two, Narendra Modi never said that he will put 15 lakhs in everyone's bank account. Never. Number three, contrary to what he's saying that the GDP per capita of Uttar Pradesh actually dipped. It increased from 47,000 to 65,000 in the last 5 years of UP government. And number four, what he's saying about 10 lakhs, he should know. I don't know whether he's an economist or not, but it's embarrassing being a scientist explaining to him that write-off and waiving off loans is a totally different kettle of fish. So the loans have been written off. The loans have not been waived off. There is a different thing. If the loans were waived off, then yet what he's saying is correct. They can never be recovered. But if the loans are written off, that is an RBI guideline that all banks have to take their bookkeeping. Number five, let me now come to Akshay Marathe. Navika, here I must correct you. It is not just AAP, but every political party that is indulging in freebies. BJP is the king and queen of freebies. Just that they don't come into picture because AAP does. Do you know that every political party have the data, the data today? If AAP is promising 1,000 rupees to every woman over 18 in Gujarat, BJP promised roughly the same thing. So did DMK, so did TMC in Goa, in Himachal, in Tamil Nadu. BJP promised 3,72,000 to every woman, EWS woman from birth to college. 3,72,000 rupees to every woman in Bengal. Everyone is doing it. The problem that I have is not that freebies, because what qualifies as freebies, it could be welfare state as well. The problem I have with AAP and others like BJP is that money has to come through capitalism. Only a capitalist economy can sustain welfare state. आप जो है सोशलिस्ट पॉलिसीज में लगा हुआ है और फ्रीबीज भी दे रहा है, ये सस्टेनेबल नहीं है. You have to encourage capitalism and private ownership enterprise in order to earn money, to give money and distribute money.
Absolutely. And Vikraman R.
I agree.
Vikraman R is raising his hand, and Vikraman R, I want to ask you, are political parties just point scoring, and they're so obsessed with their point scoring that real issues, real solutions are falling by the wayside? And when fingers are pointed at the Prime Minister, nobody is saying that in politics you should not criticize, or you should not object, or you should not oppose the party in power. The question is, when you oppose, will you at least see the issues on which the opposition is happening? For example, the writing off of loans is merely a provisioning that is done in the account books, because earlier loans were being given, not being provided for on balance sheets, and as a result they were not even on the account books. It was a swimming figure somewhere else, not provided for by banks, and that's where the RBI has come in and said that if loans have not come in for, let's say, 3 quarters, 4 quarters, whatever their definition is, then please provide them as a loan written off, but banks have to go after those people and try and get back. That's point number one. And point number two, there is a welfare state, argument that is being talked of. Of course, welfare state is required for the poor and the needy people in this country. But how far are you going to take this welfare state? Will it be within the means that you have, or will it be outside the means only because it is a short route to getting votes? Isn't that the question that political parties are not willing to face?
The welfare state will be there until there is a last person who is poor in this country. And before answering your question, I would want to mention something. Tamil Nadu's GSGP at constant prices registered a growth of 1.4% in 2020 and 21. In comparison, national GDP, it registered a negative growth rate of 6.6% in 2020 and 2021. And also in sectors like agriculture, manufacturing and service sectors, Tamil Nadu contributed 13%, 33% and 54% to the economy. I'm talking about the state which you are accusing of giving freebies. Like, we are considering it as a welfare state and you are calling it a freebie. We are giving free bus travel without tickets to women. We are giving free electricity under 100 units of power. And we are giving free electricity to farmers. And we are giving free bus passes. We are giving free education in our government schools. And they are not free. We are including everybody in the economy. That is why we could achieve that growth, the GDP. And you were asking how far this welfare state can go on, how far this argument can go on. Until there is one last person who is poor standing in this country. Until there is one last person who couldn't afford to eat, who couldn't afford to have electricity, who couldn't afford to have a decent clothing, who couldn't afford to have a healthy, clean livelihood.
So pay from your pocket, sir. Don't take the taxpayers' money. Pay from your pocket. What are you doing? You're just going on increasing tax rates. You're just going on increasing duties on petrol and things like that. And you're paying to the poor people because that's the way you think you're going to win your elections. And that is the economics that is being questioned. But once again, the entire issue comes back to the basic point. When you
with
say
due
what
respect, I
you
would
are
want to
doing
answer.
is a welfare
Navika ji.
measure, you are doing this and it is something that people of this country need, then why Kapil Madan is the Congress party calling the Prime Minister, who's also running a welfare state and welfare policies, why is he being called a man with kale karname?
So let me first respond to the charge that you made, Navika, that the price rise protest was an attempt to deflect. Let me just remind you, when Mr. Modi came to power and in 2014, what was his promises? When the cylinder was being sold at 400 rupees, Mr. Modi said, and in fact BJP and their minister protested by saying, oh, there is a price rise, these are bure din or achhe din, they promise achhe din. And when the price of the same cylinder is 1,000, and if the opposition is protesting, now you are calling them as someone who is doing a black magic. I mean, this is absurd logic. I mean, I don't know from where do they get these ideas, who's giving them these kind of inputs to talk about. Now, coming back to what my learned friend Anand said. Now, Anand has raised 5-6 issues and he has blamed BJP is not able to do this because of Congress. So I just want to ask Anand here, Mr. Modi promised that every Indian will have home by 2022. Is this the Congress responsible because Mr. Modi is unable to fulfill this promise? Mr. Modi promised that farmers' income will get doubled by 2022. Is it Congress' fault that Mr. Modi is unable to fulfill this promise? Mr. Modi promised that India will have bullet trains by 2022. Is this Congress' mistake that Mr. Modi is unable to fulfill this promise? So what Congress is trying to do, Congress is trying to show Mr. Modi that he is making promises and he is not able to deliver the promises, and all these kind of gimmicks of black magic, etc., is a tactic to deflect the attention of the people from the issues that matters to them.
Well, so Nalin Kohli, are you deflecting? Are you deflecting attention of people by raising the term of black magic? That's the charge against you.
I think the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, has used the event to, I think, hit out at the mindset of the opposition. This is not about black magic in the real sense or in terms of what clothes. It is about the joke or the mockery that they are making of the system. Certainly an opposition party has the right to protest. Certainly, in a vibrant democracy, we expect the opposition party to add to the democratic process. But they can do so if they follow the norms of democracy. So now you have a situation, Navika ji, where the satyagraha in the name of price rise has to do with the ED rates or questioning with Sonia Gandhi ji and Rahul Gandhi ji. On that till date, we haven't got a straight answer. If there is an allegation against somebody, the easiest thing is you say, okay, this is the allegation. This is my papers. Let me show how right I am. But barring that, everything else has been spoken. Democracy in danger, emergency-like situation, ED and others harassing us. That's what it is. So they are manufacturing an agenda against the central government or the government of Modi. That's it. And they're questioning the BJP.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, have real issues fallen by the wayside? Is it the mindset that the Prime Minister is questioning? And especially if the opposition is so worried about price rise, why did they walk out of Parliament when that matter was being debated? It's a question that needs to be answered. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1.